Hey, what's up, guys? I'm the Power Coach Martize. I am the go-to guy to get your bodies in shape as well as your love life. You see, I help couples create legacies of love and health. I've been a trainer for 15 years. I'm in my gym right now, and I've also been a relationship coach for the last 8 years. Today, I want to talk about part two of why relationships are failing. In part one, we spoke about a couple that I named Adam and Eve. Eve ended the relationship over a misunderstanding. Pretty much, she felt that Adam didn't show up in her time of need. And we kind of dissected the reason why she was able to disconnect from Adam because it was a lack of emotional maturity. Now, today, I want to talk about the reaction or the effects it had on Adam. You see, Adam was hurt because it blindsided him. They've been dating for several months. He expressed to me that he had fell in love with this woman. He had introduced her to his family, his mom. And so when the news or the information that she expressed to Adam that she no longer wants to continue the relationship, at that point felt a sense of blame, also and a sense of shame. And so when you start to harbor those feelings, you must be very careful because it affects our self-esteem and our self-confidence. And you find yourself being anxious in your next relationship because you're not quite sure if this relationship will end. So it may have these adverse effects where you find yourself very clingy or attached, and you're just very anxious of not upsetting your partner. And so ultimately, when one person is trying to please the other person, there's a sense of control there. And oftentimes when relationships are like that, one person feels that they need that control. Because if we do our work, we're going to find out that insecurities are driven by fear. And when you're fearful of something, your reactions or your behavior may look very controlling. You want to control the narrative. You want to control the situation. You want to control the relationship so you don't get hurt again. It can go both ways. So we're in this relationship here, we talked about Eve ending the relationship, ultimately taking control of the situation. Her response or her reaction was to end it. Now, how did that affect Adam? You see, Adam felt hurt and felt blindsided, being very apologetic to Eve. He also expressed to Eve that he loves her and that if she was to ever change her mind, he will be here. And once I heard this, I asked myself, does Adam even love himself? Because once you begin to blame yourself, you're subconsciously telling yourself that you did something wrong, that you weren't enough. You weren't enough. You didn't give enough, or you wasn't enough for her to keep you around. And if we hold on to that, that can have a long-lasting effect, and it can show up in all different types of all relationships of different kinds, including our intimate ones, as well as our friends, our family, our co-workers. When you don't feel like you are enough, when you are having an insecure feeling of a lack of self-worth, it doesn't allow you to show up in your best version. And it comes out in all types of interactions. But since we're talking about our intimate relationships, we're going to stay right there because it's so important for so many people are in relationships right now where they feel like they're walking on eggshells. They want to do everything right to please their mate because they don't want their mate to abandon them or leave them. So they become very clingy and very anxious. I would like to challenge you, if this is you, and ask the question, how does that make you feel on the inside? Are you being very loving to yourself by blaming yourself? We must be careful that we're not exhibiting behavior that's not loving to ourselves. You see, when you love yourself, Oh man, when you love yourself, you understand that you are perfectly imperfect. And what does that mean, coach? That means whatever she was going through, her reaction, it really didn't have anything to do with me because I am perfectly imperfect. I am unique in how I show up. Now, I'm not saying she's not valid in her feelings, and I'm not saying that he doesn't owe her an apology. But that's a difference than when you apologize and then you take on the blame and the shame and you allow yourself, you're pretty much punishing yourself. You see, my client, which I named him Adam, he went 3 days of just solitude in the house, not eating, called off of work, didn't go to the gym. He pretty much excluded himself from the world because he was that hurt. My opinion, that was his punishment to himself because he blamed himself. It was my fault. Now I must punish myself. I must suffer no food, no interaction, no work. I want to sit here and sob. And everyone reacts to different in different ways when it comes to heartbreak. But I want to challenge you. When you truly love yourself, you treat yourself with the utmost love, attention, and affection. What does that mean? That means you don't take on those feelings of blame and shame because you understand that because you are unique, because you are perfectly imperfect, that maybe she was having the reaction. Maybe she was going through something. And so now, as her mate, as her partner, I must be understanding that she having a reaction. I may need to give her time. But because I want to keep this connection, if possible, I want to ask some questions. You see, I said in the first video, and I said in part one, that it's hard to be logical and emotional at the same time. So if Adam would have asked more questions to help de-escalate her emotions, maybe we could have salvaged the relationship. Maybe we could have kept the connection. But by asking those questions, he would have quickly found out that once he began to ask what she's feeling, what exactly does she feel, he would have quickly understood that it had nothing to do with him. It had everything to do with her past trauma and how she deals with her triggers. See, those triggers, oh man, those triggers, your relationship is put to the test each and every time a partner is triggered. In this case, they were only together for a few months. And so maybe once or twice you might feel a trigger and you probably can bounce back from those triggers, because ultimately those triggers allow you, if you're not careful, if you're not responding, if you're reacting, those emotional reactions allow disconnections in the relationship. If you're not careful, those disconnections tend to add up, and then it ultimately ends the relationship. In my opinion, that's the reason why the divorce rate is nearly 50%. And marriages only lasting on average 8.2 years. In my opinion, it's the emotional immaturity that allowing so many couples to disconnect because of these emotional reactions. I want to remind you, as I remind myself, it's not easy, but when you are triggered, and to avoid a disconnection and not allow yourself to have an emotional reaction, I want you to take a step back, take a deep breath, and ask yourself these two questions. What am I feeling and why? You do your self-work before you present yourself in an unhealthy way, in an unhealthy space. We want to show up in our best version all the time. In order to do that, We must also coach ourselves and ask ourselves the question, what do I feel and why? Do your work, and you're going to find out quickly that what I'm feeling has nothing to do with my partner, that I must uh, identify with this pain that I've been dealing with oftentimes from past relationships, or oftentimes, more so than none, that childhood trauma, that sense of abandonment, or that sense of lack of self-worth, of lack of self-love, all that stuff it's just been brewing inside of you, and you tend to find yourself in this cycle of hurt, of pain, of blame, of shame. And so I challenge my client to do more self-work, to understand that you are perfectly imperfect and that it wasn't your fault. But as a learning lesson moving forward, using our logic to respond whenever we are triggered, using our logic to respond whenever our partner is triggered, to keep that connection, not allowing ourselves to have this disconnection. Some relationships can only take so many disconnections. You got to ask yourself, each and every time that you are triggered and you have an emotional reaction, which ultimately causes a disconnection, how many more times can your relationship afford another disconnection? I'm the Power Coach Martize. Again, hope this was helpful. Hit the like, the follow, the subscribe. Message me for any information on how we can get you and your partner on the path of being physically and emotionally fit. That's what I got. I'll talk to you guys soon. I'm out.